first started working with the consultancy in 2002 with my work with Barclays, and I think because I really enjoyed the values that Jenny and Liz hold dear to them, I had my plan of what was going to happen to me when I finally left Barclays, and part of that included being a freelance trainer. One of the things I think that the consultancy recognised was that there's a potential, there may have been a need for development for older workers, but before they actually went ahead and developed a programme, they wanted to go out to do some research to say, do we just think there's a need, or is there a real need out there from running focus groups from older workers? So I think in the end we had 14 different organisations that we run focus groups with, and we run focus groups for the older workers, but we also spent time talking to the decision makers in the organisation. So for the older workers, it was great for them to be able to have somebody actually recognise that they do have different needs. And for some of them, it was just hugely motivating just to be able to be on a focus group, whilst we were collecting all the data and all the information to decide whether in fact a programme was essential, necessary or worthwhile. And so these focus groups were really actually just getting to some of the issues that for some of the older people perhaps hadn't been raised. Some of the issues around their own development, how they felt, issues around childcare, because some of them still had grandchildren, younger children, different family relationships, and particularly elder care, because a lot of it came out that they were like the sandwich generation. They were looking after young children and grandchildren, but also looking after elder parents. So there's a lot of issues that came up, and we looked at other aspects that otherwise hadn't been focused on, which was around finance, because the dynamics had changed dramatically. A lot of people's second marriages, different financial situations, so retirement maybe wasn't an option for them. So when we questioned them and got all the information, we actually recognised that there was quite a need for something for them. But the overriding thing for me was that so many of them said they felt invisible. Once you get to 50, you become invisible. And that was quite an interesting point. But for the HR, the people making the decisions, it was very different. They had not considered the needs of older workers. Bearing in mind the research was probably 5 years ago now, it was very interesting that many of the decision makers were of a different generation from the people that we're talking about. And so when it came to it, they really just kept thinking about development for the young career whizzy folks that were joining their organisation. They really hadn't thought the need to develop older workers in a way that they can actually utilise all their skills and abilities. One of the things that we found from running the workshops was that people felt that there was something special about this group of people as opposed to most other development programmes. The fact that they didn't necessarily want to use it for career progression, they didn't necessarily want to use it for building confidence, because a lot of this group of people were very comfortable with themselves, but they still had development needs, and they felt that they were ignored in most organisations. So when we put the research together and looked at all the outcomes from the research, it was clear to Jenny and Liz that yes, a programme would be essential if we could get people to recognise the need. And I think that's been a bit of a challenge all the way through, but the people felt that they would love to talk to other people with similar issues, because often they felt isolated. They thought they were the only person in an organisation or a department or a team that had those concerns and issues, and they very rarely ended up speaking to them about anyone else. So it was hugely motivational for them to actually think that someone was taking their needs into consideration and developing something specifically for them that wasn't just about career development. I've been recently running some programmes and intend to run some later in the year for the NHS, and a very forward-thinking HR director who sees this as a really good opportunity to remotivate a group of staff, but also they've been operating some schemes for a mutually agreed resignation scheme, which at certain ages some people may decide to actually say, yes, I'd like to retire now, but it's not a redundancy, the jobs aren't redundant, but it's just someone saying, yes, it's time for me to go. a lot of people didn't get the scheme who would have liked to have been paid to go, and this HR director said, well, maybe we ought to offer them fresh steps. And it's been a very, very useful tool to say, actually, there's this group of people that you need to remotivate because they haven't been given this opportunity that you dangled in front of them. And what we found is that they really are then very clear about what they want in the future. So Fresh Steps has given them that boost. It's given everything that we found in the research for this group of people that they feel ignored, demotivated and forgotten about. So just running a programme for them in itself has made it quite an organisational sort of uplift, because they've been able to sort of feel valued and recognised for once.